Hi, welcome. This recording will be reviewing Marshall College's philosophy and mission. We will also review concepts and definitions around social identity and how it is experienced individually and broadly. You will have the opportunity to engage in a personal exploration assignment connected to the themes and concepts and your lived experience. We hope that this will better prepare you to engage with these topics in small groups. We also hope that you will apply them throughout your time as a Marshall student. Before we jump into the next slide, go ahead and think to yourself, maybe jot down a few notes. What does being a Marshall student mean to you? And what do you know about the images on this slide in context of Marshall College history?
During this presentation, we will define social identity categories, identify our own identities, and talk about our experiences of privilege, discrimination, and empowerment. You will be asked to engage in some self-reflection pieces after watching this presentation on your own social identities and how you have experienced them. We will also ask you to think more broadly on the impacts of social identities and how they show up in different communities. Examples such as family, Marshall College, UCSD, and the greater San Diego area. During orientation, we will come back together to talk in small and larger groups on personal experiences and explore collectively what this means in a diverse community and how we create brave spaces to engage in meaningful ways with our diverse Marshall community.
We are getting ready to explore social identities, how we experience social identities, and what that means for our Marshall community. As you hopefully have experienced through orientation, your time at Marshall, and in returning as an OL, we value diversity and inclusion at Marshall, and how we create a space where diversity can be appreciated and inclusion can be experienced requires that we are all open for this journey of naming identities and experiences together. We also want to say that talking about our social identities and experiences is not normalized in our society, and for some folks, our ability to live and navigate the world requires a level of awareness of our social identities at all times and in all spaces. No matter where on that spectrum you might be today, we ask that you lean in and stay open to this conversation. We know that it might be uncomfortable and challenging, and at Marshall, we know we grow through challenges. Your openness and growth with this summer training experience around identity, equity, and diversity and inclusion better prepares us to welcome our newest Marshall community members into a space where our values are in action. We invite you to go deeper and explore learning edges.
As you all have heard and likely know, our college was founded as a result of Black and Latinx student activism with recognition that there are issues in our society and in our communities that folks need skills and knowledge to address. In that organizing and vision development for the college, identity and a commitment to justice was central. Identity matters. It contributed to the founding of the college, and it continues to matter today in how our students experience campus. We recognize that around identity, diversity, inclusion, equity, and social justice, we learn solo, and we must also learn with and in community. At Thurgood Marshall College, we are dedicated to supporting students from all majors becoming engaged citizens who are committed to serving society. It is the goal that Marshall students understand that their professional careers will take place in a larger societal context determined by complex histories and social struggles, and that they will have a hand in shaping the future. This helps us create a community where this type of development and worldview is possible.
The University of California, San Diego is dedicated to learning, teaching, and serving society through education, research, and public service. Our international reputation for excellence is due in large part to the cooperative and entrepreneurial nature of the UC San Diego community. UC San Diego faculty, staff, and students are encouraged to be creative and are rewarded for individual as well as collaborative achievements. To foster the best possible working and learning environment, the UC San Diego strives to maintain a climate of fairness, cooperation, and professionalism. These principles of community are vital to the success of the university and the well-being of its constituents. The UC San Diego faculty, staff, and students are expected to practice these basic principles as individuals and in groups.
Hopefully, you will have time to explore other areas on campus and in the community so that you can continue the conversations. This slide includes some. Please note, this is not an exhaustive list. Attend programs hosted by Marshall College, Resident Assistants, RA, Marshall Student Organizations, and through the Center for Student Involvement. Engage in new discussions in lectures and sections, and check out the campus community centers and programs. Asian Pacific Islander, Middle Eastern Desi American Programs and Services, Intertribal Resource Center, Cross-Cultural Center, LGBTQ Resource Center, Black Resource Center, RISA Resource Central, Women's Center.
Now we are going to transition to discussing the 9 dimensions of identity. We want to name and acknowledge we are focusing on these 9 identities and that some of your salient identities may not be represented in this pie chart. We recognize that there are other dimensions of our identities that are important to us, our field of study/profession, being a student, a member of a family, partner, or even our interests and hobbies can be important parts of our identities. This is not to discount those identities and experiences. In thinking through social justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion in community, we are focusing on these 9 social identity categories that we all have, and that depending on your identities, you may be systemically privileged or oppressed as a result of the meaning and values assigned to those identities. We hope to dive deeper into how our social identities influence experiences in our everyday lives. Additionally, as we move through this next section, we are going to provide working definitions for these terms. We recognize these terms are complex and there are courses, dissertations, and narratives that can help understand each of these dimensions. Our definition shared today is with the hopes of giving us shared and common language for the purpose of our ongoing conversations and development throughout your orientation experience.
There are a number of social identities that we have conflated in our society, for example, race and ethnicity, and sex and gender. We hope we can provide a start to teasing those terms out for our work together. As we go through each of the dimensions, please think through for yourself, what is your identity within each of these categories? Social groups are afforded different status in the United States based on multiple historical, political, and social factors. This affects the abilities of people in different groups to access resources and opportunities. Most of these differences in identities are socially constructed. So social construction is taken for granted assumptions about the world, knowledge, and ourselves assumed to be universal rather than historically and culturally specific ideas created through social processes and interactions.
The first identity we'll talk about today is race. Race is a social construct that artificially divides people into distinct groups based on the characteristics such as physical appearance, particularly skin color, cultural affiliation, cultural history, ethnic classification, and the social, economic, and political needs of a society at a given period of time. Some examples of race are Black, white, Asian, Native. I identify as white.
Next is ethnicity. Ethnicity is a social construct that divides people into smaller social groups based on characteristics such as a shared sense of group membership, cultural heritage, values, behavioral patterns, language, political and economic interests, history, and ancestral geographical base. Examples include Somali, Vietnamese, Italian, etc. I identify as Chinese.
The next one is class, which is a division or stratum of society consisting of people at the same economic level or having the same social status. Examples of this are working class, lower, middle, upper, middle class. I identify as middle class.
Gender is the socially constructed roles, behaviors, activities, and attributes that society considers appropriate for men and women. A person's gender may not necessarily correspond to their birth, assigned sex, or be limited to the gender binary, such as woman and man. For example, gender nonconforming, genderqueer, non-binary, gender fluid, androgynous, trans, man, woman, cisgender. I identify as gender fluid.
Sex is the classification on a spectrum based on physiological and biological features. A person's sex may differ from their gender identity. Examples are intersex, male, and female. I identify as female.
Sexual affectional orientation refers to the sexes or genders to whom a person is emotionally, physically, sexually, and romantically attracted. For example, gay, lesbian, bisexual, asexual, pansexual, queer, heterosexual. I identify as bisexual.
Nationality is citizenship, country or countries with which you may or may not have a legal relationship. For example, American, Mexican, Canadian, undocumented, permanent resident, Nigerian, French, Chinese, Indian. I identify as American.
Spirituality is the quality or condition of being spiritual, attachment to or regard for things of the spirit as opposed to material or worldly interests. For example, Muslim, agnostic, atheist, Christian, Buddhist, Jewish, and Wiccan. I identify as agnostic.
Ability is being differently abled physically, mentally, emotionally from that which society has structured to be the norm in such a way that the person is unable or limited in their ability to move or has difficulty moving physically, socially, economically through life. For example, being differently able, being currently able-bodied, a person with a disability, non-disabled. I identify as currently able-bodied.
The senior orientation leader team provided our identities here on the screen with this chart. My name is Kathy, and I identify as Asian, Chinese, lower class, a woman, female, heterosexual, American, agnostic, and able-bodied.
Hi, my name is Kennedy, and I identify as Black, African American, middle class, woman, female, heterosexual, American, Christian, and currently able-bodied.
Hi, my name is Bree, and I identify as white, Hispanic, middle class, a woman, female, heterosexual, American, Christian, and currently able-bodied.
Our social identities are experienced in many different ways. We are going to explore them in relation to privilege, empowerment, and discrimination. The next few slides, we will expand on a collective definition to ground our conversation as we reflect on our personal experiences and the diverse experiences of our communities.
Discrimination is defined through actions or thoughts based on conscious or unconscious bias that favor one group over others. Discrimination can occur at the individual, institutional, and structural levels. Individual discrimination refers to the behavior of individual members. Institutional discrimination refers to the policies of the dominant race, ethnic, gender institutions who control these institutions and implement policies that are intended to have a differential and or harmful effect on minorized groups. Structural discrimination refers to the implementation of policies and control of institutions which are race, ethnic, gender neutral in intent, but which have a differential and or harmful effects on minorized race, ethnic, gender groups.
What does it mean to have privilege? It is defined as unearned access to resources, social power, only readily available to some people as a result of their advantaged social group membership. Determining who has privilege or disadvantage is complex because cultural, social, and historical changes affect which groups are privileged and which groups are not. Unearned social power, such as set of advantages, entitlements, and benefits, accorded by the formal and informal institutions of society to the member of a dominant group, for example, white or Caucasian people with respect to people of color, men with respect to women, heterosexuals with respect to queer folks, adults with respect to children, and rich people with respect to poor people. Privilege tends to be invisible to those who possess it because its absence or lack of privilege is what calls attention to it. In other words, men are less likely to notice or acknowledge a difference in advantage because they do not live the life of a woman. White people are less likely to notice or acknowledge racism because they do not live the life of a person of color. Straight people are less likely to notice or acknowledge heterosexism because they do not live the life of a gay, lesbian, or bisexual person.
Empowerment is the process of becoming stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's life and claiming one's rights, cited from the Oxford English Dictionary. Empowerment is a place where you find strength. Individuals may experience empowerment in places of discrimination.
Self-reflection. Complete the reflection connected with this presentation in Canvas prior to your second synchronous orientation session. We will be using lessons from this as a foundation to go deeper in the second synchronous orientation session.
As a takeaway, we all have social identities and they play a part in our lived experiences. As scholars and citizens, we acknowledge and think critically about the societal context we, our families, our communities, and our careers exist within. We also recognize and wholeheartedly believe each of us have a hand in shaping a future to play a part in moving towards liberation and justice for all folks. You will have the opportunity to bring your skills and to develop new ones to work on social justice issues. We hope that you stay open to continued engagement around these topics. And we are stronger as a community, and building that community means bringing yourself, your identities, your experience, and perspectives to the conversation.